Welcome to Ask Trinity Archives. I'm Joe Lipinski.
And I'm Marissa Maggs.
And we are two archivists working in the archives at Trinity Church, Wall Street. Okay, so our question today is there a fictional character buried in Trinity's churchyard? And how is that possible?
It sounds crazy, so let's get into it. In 1791, a novel titled Charlotte, A Tale of Truth, or just Charlotte Temple, was published by author Susanna Rowson. The basic plot is that young Miss Temple, a schoolgirl, is seduced by a British officer, becomes pregnant, is brought to America by the officer, and is promptly abandoned on the streets of New York, penniless, and she eventually, tragically, passes away. This story fits neatly into a genre that was popular during this time period, fittingly called the seduction novel. Charlotte Temple was written as a cautionary tale to young women, urged to avoid Charlotte's fate. The book has been a bit of a mystery since its publication because there has been much speculation about whether it was a work of fiction or nonfiction. Did Charlotte Temple actually exist? While it's now generally believed to be a fictional account, Rowson claimed the story was based on true events. This mystery is where the connection to Trinity begins. During the 1840s, the third Trinity Church was being built, and the churchyard was filled with small tents in which the artisans involved in the construction were working. When the repairs were completed and the tents removed from the churchyard, there was suddenly a new burial slab in the north churchyard. There was no record of the stone existing before this point, and there was no record in Trinity's registers of a Charlotte Temple being buried in the churchyard at any point. However, if Charlotte's timeline is true and she passed sometime in the late 1700s, Trinity's burial records from the 18th century were largely burned. Was this gravestone real and had never been noted previously? Does its existence prove that Charlotte Temple was a real person? Not long ago, in an attempt to solve the mystery of whether or not this grave was Miss Temple's actual resting place, the burial slab was raised to determine if there was any kind of burial chamber underneath. But there was not. There was nothing underneath the slab at all. An additional theory is that Charlotte Temple was actually Charlotte Stanley, a real Manhattan resident in the 18th century. Stanley was a relative of author Susanna Rowson, whose life story ran somewhat parallel to Temple's, including being abandoned by a man after becoming pregnant with his child. However, Stanley's timeline doesn't quite align with Temple's, which makes this theory unlikely to be true. So for now, we tend to believe the most practical explanation, that during the construction of the church, one of the stonemasons working in one of those little tents carved the stone as a joke and left it behind when the church building was completed and the churchyard cleared. The material of Temple's slab is the same kind of stone used in the church itself, so it's possible that this was left over, and the mason was perhaps a big fan of seduction novels.
That's all we have for today, but we'd love to hear from you. We welcome any questions you have, and we'll do our best to answer them in future videos. Thanks for tuning in.